Does anyone know what's happening?
Good question. Answer generally no. I know.
Fancy. Elevator.
I'm sorry.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Abbey House for the Vale White Horse Cabinet meeting today on the 24th of October. Thank you all for attending, both here in person, online, and we have some members of the public here as well. So welcome all. Since we have members of the public, we probably need to go through the emergency. When should we do that now?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. So emergency exits. Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Emergency exits is when you leave this door. If you go around to the corridor on the right, and then there's a fire exit door on the left. And if you go through there, well, you just follow me basically, and then we'll congregate just outside there. We've got no expected drills though.
Thank you. There are no chair's announcements that I'm aware of apart from that. So thank you. Two apologies for absence. So I think the only one I'm aware of is Councillor Pickhills because she is attending the Health and Wellbeing Board Neighbourhood Health Workshop. So that's at County Council and she can't be here. Anybody know? So minutes. We have we need to adopt and sign the minutes as correct record of the Cabinet meeting held on the 10th of October 2025. I hope everybody's had a chance to look through those. Yep. Is everybody happy to adopt those?
Yeah.
Okay, for declarations of interest, I think there is one.
Yes, I have one. So on agenda item, can't remember what number
12.
it is now, 12 on the Botley Pavilion. I got, well, it's not pecuniary interest, it's just an interest because I've been a supporter of the pavilion and I'm acting as a board councillor. So at that item, I will leave the table and join the public gallery.
Thank you. So you're not voting on that.
So I won't be voting or taking part in the discussion on that item.
Thank you. And Councillor Potter's online. Councillor Potter, hi there.
Hi, yes. About the same agenda item, I need to just declare that I'm married to a trustee of the Louis Royal Pavilion Trust. I've taken advice from our officers and I understand that having made this declaration, I'm free to speak on the pavilion as a ward member.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Thank you. I think that's it. So we will move on item number 5, urgent business. I don't think there is any. And item 6, public participation. So obviously we have members of the public here, and we have 4 registered speakers. So one by one, you can join the table at the front, so you can just talk. It's 3 minutes, isn't it? 3 minutes each. Hopefully, you won't be sort of repeating everything that the other one said. So it's fine. Hope we've coordinated a little bit because we want you to have the most time to express your opinions. And so, who's the first on the list again?
Can I just suggest, because at the moment I think everybody is here or all members of the public here to speak on item 12, which is the Botley Pavilion.
Oh yes, of course, yeah.
So could I suggest that we bring forward that?
I was going to say that. Yeah. Thank you.
Shall I leave the table now then if we're going to do public participation and then move on to item 12 now?
Yeah, I guess so. That's
probably thank you. Thanks.
We do have Nick Bennett here, who's head of legal, so to make sure that everything's going smoothly. Thank you for attending. So who's the first on the list?
Sorry, my name's here. I've got Councillor Dowie here. Councillor Dowie, if you could come to the table at the front. Thank you.
Thank you. And you've got 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. I'm Martin Dowie. I'm a parishioner and a parish councillor in Botley North Hinksey. I'm here to encourage you to refuse the allocation of £250,000 towards Botley Pavilion and return the funds for reallocation as laid out in option C on page 96 of the Cabinet report. The term Botley Pavilion suggests a sports pavilion. I think this is misleading. The proposed development is essentially a second community hall or community hub which duplicates some of the existing or available or needing support, facilities available or needing support in the parish. I believe we're all aware of the documentation discussions around previous planning applications and the current Section 73 amendment. The proposed development is ill-conceived and controversial, not well supported by parishioners, and has been driven forward by political considerations. The stated aims and outcomes of the Parish Council outlined in Section 11 of the Cabinet report are confused, weak, and potentially misleading. The proposed business plan is essentially fantasy. It is likely that the development will require subsidy for operation. A public work loan may increase the parish precept by about 25% just to cover annual interest, and this increase may last for decades. Aspects of the financial risk to the District Council are noted in sections 34 to 40 of the Cabinet report. However, it is also the case that the Parish Council are not noted for their willingness to honour agreements and understandings, legal or otherwise. There is a risk to the District Council's reputation. The public, locally and district-wide, may be dismayed by section 40 of the Cabinet report, which identifies the risk arising from a unique preferential arrangement. Perhaps the public will view this proposed allocation as local politicians conferring advantage on themselves and their supporters while closing the door to everybody else. Clearly, the situation has changed since 2019 and 2022. £250,000 could be more effectively applied to other valuable projects in the parish, such as coming to an arrangement with Brookes University to retain the swimming pool and sports facilities on the Harcourt Hill campus, or supporting smaller projects, such as working with Sovereign to reopen the residence facility on Seacourt Road. It would also be reasonable to hope the Parish Council will increase cooperation and support with other existing sports facilities, such as the sports clubs in North Ixley Village and, of course, the facilities at Harcourt Hill campus. I urge you to return the £250,000 allocation to the CIL balance and encourage the Parish Council to consider a smaller scale project, more in keeping with the land they own and their budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're discussing this item straight after public speaking, so we will include discussion on all speakers' points. So thank you for coming.
Questions?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So one of the things, sorry, Councillor Gascoigne, one of the things you said was that it's not well supported by parishioners, and I was wondering what evidence that you had for that.
There was a parish poll taken which talked about retaining the Scout Hut, for example. The result of that parish poll was that parishioners voted 3 to 1 to retain the Scout Hut on site and support the Scout group. So the parishioners are not in favour of what's happening on the site.
Sorry, how was that poll conducted? Was that like online, or you spoke to people?
No, it was a parish poll. So it was overseen by the District Council.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You made reference to one of the options in which was subparagraph C.
Yeah.
That effectively has two segments to
Yes,
it. One is to retain or to decline the award now, but to retain it in the SIL balance,
Yes.
which would be effectively which means that that money would be available for the officers to determine across the whole of the Vale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the second option effectively is to retain it for until phase 2 were to come forward.
Mm-hmm. Which
Which of those two is the one that you are posing? I mean, and I know we put them in one paragraph.
Yes,
but they really could have been separated out.
yes, absolutely. I'm the one that's for putting it back into the pot so it can be separated across the Vale. Because that seems like a fairer option. Because what you have here is it seems to be a slightly suspicious preferential arrangement.
You've answered my question.
Thank you.
And so then I just probably ought to make a point of clarity that the money that money is not there allocated for Botley Parish. It's allocated at the moment for a specific project within Botley Parish.
Mhm.
If it were not to go to that project, then it couldn't be earmarked specifically for a project in Botley without going through the process of putting it back into the budget.
Yes.
I'm sure you are aware of that, but just perhaps for the public, just make sure that's
Yes.
clear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, councillor Paulson.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. Firstly, just for clarity, you were introduced as a parish councillor. I'm assuming from what you've said, you're speaking as an individual parish councillor and not representing the parish council.
As an individual parish councillor.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Yes.
Which you have every right to do.
Yes.
On the point about the parish pool, what was the turnout and when did it take place?
It was I think it was 2021, and the turnout was about 300, over 300 votes for the Scout House, retaining the Scout House, and about 100 against.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there will subsequently have been parish council elections in May 2023, and has support for this project been confirmed by a majority on the parish council since the elections in May 2023?
By the majority of councillors on the parish council, yes. But I think you're aware that in politics, just because people vote for a particular party, they don't necessarily agree with all their policies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm very well aware of that. Thank you.
Yes.
Is it?
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I had one as well on a similar theme. I don't know how many parish councillors there are.
14.
14. When it came to debate and decision, was it a very close vote at the parish council, or
Which stage?
whatever stage it was that agreed that the parish council wanted to go down this route?
I think you'd have to go back to 2019, and I think that was in progress before I became parish councillor. So this progress, this particular planning application has been going for at least 6 years.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And obviously debates before that, and it's been extremely controversial. So you have to look at what point was it actually being decided and what information was available. And right from the very beginning, it's been very confused in terms of getting legal advice and information as to who owns what and what is actually being proposed. So you'd have to ask a very precise question.
Well, I'll try and rephrase it. I think Councillor Fawcett said, has it been agreed since the 23 elections by the parish council? I think the answer was yes.
Yes.
So
yeah.
When it was agreed post 23 elections,
Yes.
You said there's 14 councillors. Was it 6-8 or was it 13-1? What was the?
Well, I mean, the application's in place. We haven't really had a chance to vote. If we were going to vote, it would fall down effectively for these party lines, I imagine, which would be the Council for our Community Group, which are supportive of this project, and probably those who aren't, which is the remaining four. Yes.
And that's how the vote went.
No, there wasn't a vote. I mean, the project is just ongoing since 2019. There has been no real vote as such since then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. No. Councillor Barrett?
Can I suggest Councillor Kay goes before me? Because I think
Arranged.
we'll follow that.
That's
okay, yeah.
Yes, thank you very much.
Good morning. Our business plan states that in 2018, we formally embarked on a project to improve recreational and sports facilities at the playing fields. In fact, discussions had been going on for many years before that, and our neighbourhood plan notes a clearly identified long-term lack of suitable facilities for sections of the community, primarily teenagers, the elderly and parishioners with restricted mobility. In 2018, serious planning began on the wider project, with new play equipment added in 2019 and a new skate park this year. None of those additions to date have involved funding from the Vale. Current pavilion includes a small community meeting room plus changing rooms, which are unusable due to their condition. The former Scout House is permanently locked as it's riddled with asbestos and has failed energy rating. Our architect advises the only viable option is to demolish it, and suggestions that a cheap fix is possible are highly misleading. Both buildings urgently need replacing, as highlighted in the Vale's Local Leisure Facilities Report of 2016 and the 2024 Leisure Facilities and Playing Pitches Strategies. Given uncertainty over the Harcourt Hill campus, the provision of adequate alternatives has become even more imperative. We obtained planning approval for a new pavilion in 2019 and after COVID for a revised design to 2023, both of which were supported by a strong majority of councillors. And pre-construction building conditions have been met in full in April. Met in full. In April, we split the project into 2 phases to ensure building works could commence before planning approval runs out. The variation of conditions to allow this as a target decision date of 10th November. Over £70,000 has been spent by us to date, including £20,000 of district council funding for initial master planning fees. This £250,000 is, I believe, the only other money provided by the Vale for leisure facilities in more than 20 years. We continue to follow up grant opportunities and raise funds within the local community, and a public works loan is on the agenda for November council meeting. That will be paid off through a precept rise of £18 per average household, and even after that increase, the precept would be around 14% lower than the national average. There is a risk that phase 2 is severely delayed or never happens, but phase 1 will bring many of the desired benefits, give us more time to raise further funds and provide a more solid position to approach funders with. Realistically, we need Cabinet to approve the full 250k. If not, it would result in a much smaller scale refurbishment type project, losing many of the benefits of phase 1. It would cause more delays, during which time the current pavilion and hut would deteriorate further, with the latter having to be demolished regardless, taking up a significant proportion of available funds, and the changing rooms would remotely meet Sport England standards, which would have implications on your playing pitch strategy action plan. Overall, by approving the full 250,000, you will be helping us to provide much needed sports and leisure facilities in a parish that has been seriously underfunded in the past, and buying into a project that has been painstakingly developed over many years. It will be an appropriate use of your capital funds and will provide many benefits. There's no significant risk to the Vale, and this decision is fully allowable from a legislative and procedural viewpoint. And therefore, I trust that this will be the decision you now make.
Just about.
A few stumbles, so
You did very well. That ability to speak quickly is very helpful sometimes. Thank you. So, does anybody have any questions on this? Councillor Porter.
Thanks. You mentioned the scout hut, and that was also mentioned by a previous speaker. And I am aware because I've seen the debate around this issue over many years, that was an issue a few years ago. Yeah. Can you tell us what the current situation is now with the scout hut, how the scouts are now operating?
It's very much a former scouts hut because they left several years ago, which was their own decision at the time. We gave them the option to stay in while we worked out what's happening with the planning for this. Since they've left, basically we got in there, we managed to do an asbestos survey and also an electricity rating, which is how we found out about the problems with that. So it's a completely unusable building, it's locked up, it will not be used again because there's no way of refurbishing it basically. So we've been told by the architects it needs to be knocked down at some stage. The scouts moved to another site, they have been operating there in the last few years, and we haven't heard a lot from them in the last 2 or 3 years really.
Thanks.
Thank you. So you mentioned, I'm very pleased to hear you mention the leisure facilities and playing pitch strategy of 2024 and your engagement with Sport England. Can you confirm that the proposed works will bring facilities up to the standards required by national sports governing bodies, as confirmed through Sport?
Yes, in terms of the changing rooms, we did discuss that with them all the way through to make sure that we had facilities that were going to meet their guidelines. So that was an important part of the sort of in the initial plans when we were building them up, and we kept that within the second part, which would be in phase 1. So when phase 1 is built, it will have the changing rooms as they would be effectively in the main building overall. It's only the community part of the building which will be a smaller scale initially.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
So I have 2 questions. One actually is a repeat of the question I asked when thank you very much, by the way, for the site visit. It was useful. And I asked this question then, and I think I should ask it again to make sure that the question's out in the public domain, which is, I understand the position of the scouts. They effectively have moved out of the, if you like, let's call condemned building. I think that's my view of what it looked like. And they've been out of that building now for 3 years. My question to you was the intent for them to move into the community space of the original planned application? I actually think the title in the SIL capital programme of sports pavilion is incorrect. It should be sports pavilion and community space or something along those lines.
Yeah.
If so, my question really was to you, and I'll ask it again. If phase 2 were not to go ahead, would that effectively deny the organisations like the Scouts who were anticipating moving in there? And the reason I asked the question was because there were a number of objections to the planning application in 23, and they were really based around the Scouts use. There were lots of others, but predominantly I recall the Scouts use. So the question is, has a permanent solution been found for the Scouts that they could continue to use if phase 2 were not to go ahead? If phase 2 did go ahead, would the Scouts be going in there?
Okay. This is going to be a slightly complicated answer based on
Well, as simple as possible, because we're simple people.
Yeah. So the Scouts have moved out. They have new facilities that they are using. When we discussed this initially with the Scouts, we had a year's worth or more of discussions, changing the plans and so on. About 14 times, I think the initial plans changed to try and incorporate things that would work for them across the whole building when it was built. Given the fact that they then backed out of the discussions when they decided they wanted 24/7 access, they didn't want to share it with other community groups. That was the main block that they decided was the reason they wanted to move out and not use our facilities. And that particular Scout group would not be looking to come back, as I understand it, even if the whole building was built. However, we have other Scout groups that are showing an interest in the facilities of the whole building would be able to cater for Scout groups. So we're aiming to have it facilities for the people like Scout groups, youth groups, etc., the widest range. Phase 1 would allow a certain part of that. It wouldn't allow a huge group to have the same sort of facilities that they would with the whole building.
Sure.
But it would be a step towards that, and they would certainly be able to, even at this stage, if we book phase 1, that Scout group, another Scout group could book the building for some of their uses.
Yeah. So there always might be other community organisations that would like to use the community space. But I guess my question really is just to be really clear, those objections that were raised for the planning application, and then we'll base that on the Scouts, effectively are not an issue any longer because the Scouts have a permanent solution that they can use and do not intend to go into community space. And I think, to be fair, perhaps I could ask that if the chair's happy of both speakers so far, because I've got a feeling I'm not going to get a different answer.
Well, the Scouts have moved out and they are using other facilities, and they haven't come to us to say they're looking to do anything other than stay where they are at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I take a different point of view, as you expect. The Scouts have moved out. They consider themselves effectively evicted from their Scout hut. They are temporarily based at the rugby club, North Eastern Village, and they don't have a permanent home yet. They are loath to engage with parish council because of the way they've been treated. That is why there's no interaction.
Okay, thank you. So if I may say then, in your opinion, there is a solution for the Scouts, but in your opinion, the Scouts would still be reliant on that community space of the original project?
Yes, I mean, they could bring the original hut to the site, which they then gave to the parish council.
Okay, thank you. And I did say 2 questions, and hopefully the second one's much easier. I think I heard you say this would generate a requirement for an increase of £18 on the precept.
That's what we calculated at the moment.
May I ask what the precept is at the moment?
It's £60 and 51p, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Did anybody have?
Yeah, just very briefly, also on the Scouts, if I may. I think you said earlier on that the Scouts wanted 24/7 effectively ownership of the building. Now, clearly, if we're talking about a community building, even if all the faces were built tomorrow, that wouldn't be a tenable option for the parish council. So I don't really understand, if that is still their position, how it could ever be the case that you could do something for the parish that gives any Scout group 100% access all the time, effectively to the exclusion of the rule.
Well, this is where we started discussions where we were talking about a shared building from the very start, and then it came about that they were wanting at least 5 evenings a week access. Okay, when they're not using it, they're happy for other people to use it, but they wanted the ability to be able to go in there and use it at any time, and that wasn't ever going to work. And when we explained that a shared building isn't doing that, that's when they started backing out of the discussions.
Thank you. Yeah, that, I was going to ask about the scouts too, but I think it's probably been covered. But just to clarify as well, the original scout hut, was that shared space, or was that 100% scout?
That was 100% scouts. The pavilion was separate. But when we started drawing the plans together, that was when the shared building exercise, which went through public opinion and was the preferred option for everybody at that stage.
And while I didn't go on the site visit, I am aware of the area. I have been out there previously, so yeah, I can recall the sort of state of the building there. Thank you. I think we're done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next councillor.
Councillor Bennett, sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. David's covered the background and the funding situation, so I wanted to talk about where we are now and the opportunity we have with the phase one. So now in October 25, we've achieved quite a lot of our planned rejuvenation of the Louis Memorial Fields with play equipment we put in 2019, and the skate park that we've delivered this spring has proved a great success. We had an official launch party in early September, attended by over 200 people, skaters, children, families, all ages. At the end of September, we held a health and wellbeing event on the fields, highlighting local businesses and sports and health clubs. One of the stall holders was the Vale's Active Communities team, and they've since confirmed they're going to run the park yoga on the fields and also the children's orienteering. So we now really need to upgrade the pavilion facilities to support these activities and others, to support the playing fields and pitches and the youth club and other users. The youth club's really important. It needs modern facilities. They have about 100 members with 40 regular summer attendees when the fantastic outside space is really well used. But in the winter, those numbers drop off to about 12 a week because their indoor tatty facilities are really off-putting. Matthew Arnold School are a user of the playing fields and the mugger on a contract basis with the parish council in school time, so the fields are well used. And we've also been talking to the headmaster about using it for school matches after school, perhaps their sports day and other sport uses. They currently have an arrangement with Harcourt Hill Brooks campus to use some of their fields, but obviously that's very uncertain now. We used to host an adult women's football team, but they left for better facilities. We know that there are a children's team in Cumnor, which is growing and needs more pitches. So we have football teams that can use the fields if we can provide adequate facilities. Facilities for phase one would be sports changing room that meet Sport England guidelines, a small hall with kitchenette, larger slightly than we have now, outside accessible toilet, storage units, demolition and removal of the condemned scout hut, landscaping, a wildlife corridor, and accessibility. And the benefits of that would be it's fit for purpose for sports clubs. The whole of the changing rooms is complete. The hall space will allow for continued use of the youth club, but better attendance, art classes, other meetings. And we'll have accessibility for the first time, step-free access to the pavilion, disabled parking spaces on the same side of the road as the facility, not crossing the road. An outside accessible toilet for anyone using the fields, whether walking their dog. We have a Botley Health Walks group that use that area. So I wanted to reassure you that phase one delivers a facility that is complete, would be fit for purpose and would be a huge boost for the community. Sports Pavilion Park is fully complete, hall improved and the whole building more accessible. And local people do want this. We talked about the parish poll in 2021, when in 2023, 26 candidates stood for the 14 seats in Botley, which is amazing. 10 of us that were voted on ran on a campaign that led on providing the skate park and the pavilion. And of those that actually actively campaigned against, only one got a seat.
Wind up your comment.
So I'll just say it's expected and we hope to deliver it.
Questions?
Let's ask what sports are played. I'm guessing maybe cricket and football, but other things as well.
It's football mainly. Yeah, it's not really that suitable for cricket, but yeah, football. We have other possibilities. We've got the mugger as well with basketball.
Yeah.
Any further questions? No. I think you got questions. You had a nice positive
Thank you.
engagement.
You got it.
We don't intend it to be an interrogation. It's
Um,
supposed to be helpful.
Do you want to go first or?
I think Councillor Potter we're going to share the time. I think so. Councillor Potter was going to speak first, and then I was going to just jump in and pick up a few points. If that's okay.
Councillor Potter.
Thank you. This pavilion has been identified as a strategic priority for the Vale since 2016, when the Vale Leisure Survey first recognised that the existing building was already in need of replacement. It is also fully aligned with our neighbourhood plan, which highlights the playing fields as a local priority and a key community space, supporting both physical and social well-being across all age groups. Our community has faced long-term underinvestment in leisure facilities because we don't have a Vale-funded leisure centre. There has effectively been no district level investment in this area for many years, despite being one of the largest population centres in the district. The existing pavilion simply does not meet modern standards. It is not fit for mixed gender or accessible use, and it is struggling to support current user groups, especially the youth group, which have been involved in the consultations and has long needed a proper base. The vision for the new pavilion is to create a modern, flexible community hub that can to serve as a home for young people, while also opening up opportunities for daytime and social activities for older residents and wider community use. In short, this project is about fairness, inclusion and renewal. After nearly a decade of holding together a building that has long past its lifespan, this investment is what will finally bring our local facilities up to the standard that many residents in other parts of the Vale already enjoy. Thank you, and I'd like now to hand over the remaining time to my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much. I suppose I wrote down lots of things I could say, but they've already been said, so I'm going to ad-lib slightly. But just to say that I echo what Councillor Potter and Kay and Barrett have said about all of the situation and all the great work that's been going on. There's a real momentum at the moment of improving that area for Botley, and it's a really timely improvement and momentum because of the Harport Hill campus threat. So obviously we've lost our swimming pool, very uncertain about what's going to happen in the future for leisure facilities there. So we want to just make sure that Botley's kind of not forgotten. I think if the decision would be to, if Cabinet today decided to not allow the parish to draw down this money and use it for phase one, I think there would be, it really puts the whole project at risk. And it's not just that building, which we've already heard will be fantastic and much improvement on what is there, but that momentum as well. I love the fact that phase one has the accessible toilet in, because I was really pushing for that in the early days. But yeah, so this is a project that I've supported for a very long time. When I was in opposition alongside Councillor Hallett, we worked with the administration at the time to get some money for a feasibility study for the larger redevelopment, and then since 2019 we've obviously identified some funding that could be used. So as the report says, it's, you know, in terms of legislation, it's a perfectly legitimate use of the money. I hope you've heard from the speakers about what benefit it will bring. And if we don't do it, I really worry, because I think this project is going to really struggle if we don't support it now. And to pull out now, I just don't think that's right. I just wanted to pick up one thing that Councillor Barrett said. I think it was Councillor Barrett about Matthew Arnold School and Harport Hill. I spoke to one of the teachers there, and they said that agreement with Brooks isn't actually in place this year. So that's already stopped. So they are in need of more facilities. So they're trying to negotiate with Brooks, and they're hoping they can get another sort of year's contract, but at the moment that isn't in place either. So there's just huge need in that area. I'll stop there, but happy to take questions on something else.
Lots of uncertainty, I can see. And may I congratulate Councillor Potter on his speaking speed. He's quite impressive.
It's much better.
Well done, Councillor Potter. So questions from either of you. Is that okay? Yeah.
So again, I asked this question when I was on the site visit, and it was about the school's use, which is, I think I'm right, I recall correctly, is effectively using the sports fields. And I asked the question, would they be using the pavilion, and the answer came back that actually they would be using their own changing rooms in the school. So the question is, if there were no pavilion there whatsoever, would that deny the school the opportunity of using the facilities they currently use?
I'm not sure. I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't. It might not prevent it completely. But having things like the toilet there and somewhere to shelter and things like that, you know, even if you're changing at school. And, you know, having a new facility would be a benefit. So it may
No,
not
of course,
prevent it, but it would definitely make it a lot
So-
easier
okay.
and be able to stay longer and do after school
No,
matches and things like that.
understand. So can I, let's clarify then.
Mm.
Do the school currently use the existing pavilion, for example, for the use of the loos or something? I know they can't use the showers because they're used as
Yeah.
storage.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if you can ask.
And we actually met with the headmaster of the school just after we met you that day.
Yep.
We had subsequent conversations about what they like to use it for.
Yeah.
They don't use it currently, the pavilion. They don't need to, and it's
Right.
used only in the daytime when obviously the school is open. So the talk was about whether they would be able to use it for after school matches and maybe sports day, where maybe they'd want people on the field and using the pavilion for the kitchen.
So no pavilion,
potential.
you know, let's say held down now, would not put the school in any worse position than they currently are.
Currently, because they're
No.
using it in the daytime, but there is extended potential, like you said, with the groups.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, they did talk about using it as a home pitch for their matches.
Okay.
So Fulton.
Thank you. At the risk of fixating on the toilet provision, you mentioned you mentioned the accessible toilet in the new design.
Yes.
Is there a particular standard that it's going
So
to
I
meet?
believe, and again, anyone else may want to correct me, but I believe that the external accessible toilet is a kind of standard disabled accessible with a baby changing space, and then there's a space to change inside the building.
Right, I'm very glad to hear both
I
provisions.
think that's correct.
As some of my colleagues know, I spend a lot of time volunteering with disabled sport, and that sort of provision is very much appreciated.
Yes, Gwen.
And so the first speaker talked about support amongst residents for this facility and their take on it with the parish poll, and we had some questions about that. So to get the other side, I was wondering on what your take on public support for this facility.
I think because this has been going on for quite a long time, there's been different sort of discussions and different polls and surveys and stuff done over the years. I think when the parish poll was done, the question was about the Scout hut as it was then, and that was a while ago now, and things have kind of moved on. So I think if you ran that same poll with that same question, I'm convinced you'd get a different answer now. I think since then we've had the election, as others have said, this was a key issue in the elections. It was on a lot of different leaflets, pro and against, and the election results kind of speak for themselves. And I go to parish council meetings, maybe not every meeting, but between them we go to most of them. And when this issue has come up, there's always been like a majority of councillors in support of this continuing, and there haven't been any members of the public turning up, or at least not many recently, to kind of object or raise questions, whereas perhaps in the past that had been the case, but you know, sort of like in 2020, 21 kind of time. But more recently, I haven't seen anybody come along to kind of object or ask questions or anything like that. It's all been, you know, generally supported, and just, I mean, it's not scientific, but just from chatting to people, talking to people at my surgeries in the street, whatever, people are often asking me, oh, what's going on with it? What's happening? When are we getting the pavilion? Is there going to be supporting it? You know, those kind of questions. So I haven't had anyone contact me about concerns with it since before the planning permission was granted.
Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know if
Yeah,
the
that's
process
what I'm saying.
has had any.
Well, just to add as well, no, I haven't heard anybody speaking out against it, and noting selection bias, but you know, the success of the launch of the skate park and the wide ranging members of the community who have come to use that and attended events there. I mean, I've experienced a positive feeling about it, and with regard to the parish poll, I mean, again, it's just worth noting the question that was asked at the time, which was about the Scout hut. And you know, it wasn't a question about a broader question around how people felt about this community space. So just some caution there.
Other question? And the toilet's going to be accessible 24/7, is that right? Or-
I'm not sure about the management of it. Obviously, it
Yeah.
could physically be. I'm sure it will be locked at some point. I think the one in the shopping centre down at the bottom of the hill in Botley is sort of locked it overnight. But so I would expect something similar, but to be arranged.
Anything further? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we will, if there's no other discussion, we'll go straight into the item and you're introduced. Jane,
Yeah, I am, yeah.
Thank you.
Perhaps I should just explain for those who are not familiar with the cabinet procedures. Whenever we take a report, whoever the lead portfolio holder is introduces the report. And as I spent quite some time writing this with the support of officers, I will read it, but you'll have to bear with me because probably most of it you already know. But just for completeness, exactly. Yeah, thank you. This report invites Cabinet to determine if it approves the award of £250,000 of community infrastructure levy allocation in the Council's capital programme for the Botley Pavilion to Botley and North Hinkley Parish Council. These funds were allocated in 2022-23 and have been carried forward through subsequent budget rounds. In July 2023, planning permission was granted for the demolition of the old pavilion and scout hut and building a new pavilion and community space. The parish council have since developed their proposal, but being unable to secure sufficient funding to deliver the scheme as a whole, they are now pursuing a two-phase approach and have submitted a request to the council to seek formal award of the £250,000 SIL funding towards the proposed phase one, which will enable them to complete the pavilion section of the scheme, with the full community space to follow as phase two. The two-phase approach will require amendment to the planning approval, although this will not extend the planning commencement requirement of July 2026, i.e. the planning must start, the development must start by July 26. The first phase of the revised approach will see the demolition of the existing unusable facilities and the provision of the pavilion element of the scheme, including changing facilities, toilets, and a small area for community use. The sports pavilion to be delivered in phase one would be a compliant use of SIL funding. Additionally, the need for the facilities to be delivered is identified in the council's playing pitch strategy, which was approved in December 2024. Officers have some concerns over the use of funds for this purpose, as set out in the report, but in summary, these are a lack of formally secured funding for phase one of the project, where there is a £600,000 shortfall, roughly £600,000 shortfall, lack of certainty that the second phase of the project will ever progress, outstanding planning permissions, although the overall permission is still in place, internal projects for council owned and operating infrastructure being rejected through the growth bid process due to lack of funds. Despite these concerns, mitigation and justification can be demonstrated for each of them, meaning this award of funding is allowable in terms of SIL regulations, SIL spending, the SIL spending strategy, and the capital programme allocation. Although these funds have been allocated for this project in the capital programme, formal Cabinet approval is required to spend them. As part of this approval, Cabinet will need to consider if the use of these funds is appropriate based on the supporting information provided, and if the proposed two-phase approach will deliver the community benefit that was envisaged when the budget allocation was made. Cabinet may choose to discuss the following options, though are additional, but these broadly are then when considering this matter. Approval of the full 250,000 allocation towards the delivery element of phase one of the pavilion project, as requested by the parish council. Approval of part of the £250,000 allocation towards the delivery element of phase one of the pavilion project, with the remaining balance returned to the available SIL balance for reallocation or to be retained in the capital programme for phase two of the project when this comes forward. Or decline the award of the £250,000 towards the delivery element of phase one of the pavilion project, with the funds returned to the available SIL balance for the reallocation, or to be retained in the capital programme for phase two of the project when this comes forward. Should Cabinet determine to award all or an element of the SIL funding towards this application, the release of the funds would be dependent on the necessary planning permissions being gained before the works commence. This is important, as I understand the Vale's planning officer has recently communicated with the parish council's architect, providing an update on what is required to progress the planning amendments. namely an additional non-material application, will be required to introduce the phasing plan. The Vale will also need to assure itself that at least phase one of the project is fully funded, noting that there is currently a shortfall of some £600,000. Paragraph 23 of the report details how the parish council intends to meet the shortfall. Cabinet should note that if the decision is made to not commit the full £250,000, the proposed project may be unachievable, meaning that a revised, smaller scale project would need to be considered, or potentially for the ambitions of a new facility to be abandoned. So I'll try and answer any questions that the Cabinet have. I have online Mark Hewer, who wrote the report and is responsible for managing our funds like the SIL and Section 106, and also Simon Hughes, who's head of finance.
Thank you. So obviously we've had lots of time to consider it already and discuss, but I'm sure there are other points to debate. And thank you, Mark, for joining us online. So can I open any debate? Councillor Fawcett.
Thanks. So my view is that we should allocate the 250,000. I've listened carefully to the discussion today, and for me, we have allocated it in our budget. That's the end of the matter, but it's we have shown that intent in the past. I think there's a reasonable expectation in the community in Botley that we would go down this route, unless there is a reason not to, and I haven't heard any significant reason not to. I can see that the parish council has put in a lot of work producing a business case, and I can see that our officers have done a lot of work to make sure that they can put proper safeguards in place, so that if anything goes wrong with that as we move forward, we're not signing a blank check. We're allocating the money to a project, and our officers can put in place a process which means that that money is safeguarded should anything go wrong, or should the rest of the balance not be raised in the time frame that's needed. I'm not massively familiar with the site. I have been to it. I've seen the skate park, which is fantastic, and I think there is a very strong case for why it is needed, and it does fit within our, as Councillor Filsham referred to earlier and was referred to by the speakers, it fits in with work we've done in the past around leisure needs in that community. So I'm completely convinced that it's the right direction to go in. If I can just say a word following the speakers, I think it's not for us to rehash a debate that has already been had in the parish council. If the majority of parish councillors have supported a project, again, unless there was a very significant reason why we would have any difficulty with that, I think we accept that that's the position of the parish council. That's a debate for them to have around their use of resources, what they think is a reasonable precept to levy on their residents, and they've been elected to do that, and we've had confirmation that their position has continued to support this project since they were elected last time round. So for me, the sort of the democratic case, if you like, has been made. So that's where I'm on this. I think it's the right way to go forward, as I said, with very clear safeguards around how we would treat that money and the project going forward. So as I said, it's not a blank check. It's an indication at this point that we want to support this project going forward in the way it's been set out, as long as it progresses in the way that is currently planned.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think on most of those points, particularly the latter point, local democracy, I think is so important. And if the parish council since 23 has been elected, and the majority of the parish councillors would do that, I think then it is safe to say that they are reflective of the residents of the community based on that. Councillor Crawford.
A couple of things, if I may. Firstly, I was actually cabinet member for finance when we first allocated or ring-fenced this money for Botley Pavilion, and I think we did so partly because we saw that there was a great need for facilities in that area, and also because I think the previous administration to us had not served the community terribly well, to be honest. I won't go into the detail of that. Listening to the debate today, it really reminds me of how great local democracy is, actually, on whichever side of the fence people are on. You parish councillors, I'm a parish councillor too, as well as being district. I know give an awful lot of your time and effort to your local community, and I think that is absolutely fantastic. As I say, whichever side of the debate we're on, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that what we're talking about here is providing facilities for local people. It makes it clear a lot of that is younger people. My daughter plays football for Wantage Town Football Club. She's just 18 yesterday. 10 years ago, Wantage had no women's sides at all. They now have 11, I believe. We're not obviously maybe slightly bigger than Bolly, but it's so important to get young people into sport for a whole host of reasons. And the more facilities we can have like this, not just the skate park, but changing rooms and all the rest of it, the better. And I think it's a very good use of money that is available. As Councillor Colton has said, it's actually available across the Vale. What we have decided to allocate this amount to Botley, and I'll certainly be supporting it very much.
Thank you. Councillor Colton.
Thank you. I'm actually very pleased to see this coming through. It's actually a very good example of the district council working with partners, with parish councils, but also looking for reference to the likes of Sport England and the national sports bodies to check that we're actually putting in place facilities that are needed in the place that they're needed at the standards that is needed to make it suitable for people at the different levels of sport. So I think that this is clearly the way to go. It's working together in the best possible way. So I'm very, very happy to see it come through. We'll be very definitely supporting it. Yeah.
I feel I'm sort of almost like the turkey voting for Christmas here, because obviously I've got the support. Well, actually, I'm supporting the finance team to make sure that we have a balanced budget.
Mm-hmm.
And if this request, in fact, when I say I think, I probably would say I know that if this request were coming to us now, asking for SIL funding, we would almost certainly have to say no, we can't support it, because we've already rejected other bids for SIL funding from third parties because we haven't got sufficient. At the time the decision was taken, I think the balance was something in the order of about 2.9 million from when we started collecting SIL in 2017, and so therefore the council was in a better position in terms of allocation of funding. Now, that being said, the money has clearly was put into the budget earmarked for this project, and it does suggest that it has been reviewed annually as we do our budget cycle. Of course, we do look at the capital programme. I think what I would have to say is that when we do that review, we shouldn't just be looking at the short title on a spreadsheet that says Botley Pavilion. We should be saying what was it set aside for, and initially it would have been for the 2019 planning application, which then ran out of time, and then the 2022 planning application, which was for sports pavilion sports pavilion, I'll call it, and also a community space. So £250,000 is not an insignificant amount of money, was set aside for a sports pavilion and a community space. My concern with this is the two-phase approach. There is no guarantee that the community space would be delivered. I mean, I'm sure everybody in this room is hoping it would be, but there's no guarantee. So were we in the position back, revisiting that decision in 22, 23, if we knew that it was just going to be the phase one that we were funding, would we have allocated £250,000 to it? Okay. now jump forward to the current date, the fact that there is a risk that only part of that original project is going to be delivered, is it right that we should still be putting the full sum, assuming that we believe we were going to have a pavilion and community space? What I would say is, and this is on the positive, is the Vale is, I mean, and parish councillors, please, take this at face value. We are protecting ourselves because if there is insufficient funding to go ahead with phase one, then the Vale will not submit any money. It will not be spending its money. So we are not losing the money. I do believe that it's a true statement to say that if that £250,000 is not put forward for this project, it will make life exceptionally difficult for the parish to raise the 600,000, particularly for looking for a public works loan. Therefore, that I can't possibly say it would stop the project, but I think that puts that project at severe risk. So I think it boils down to me. Also, we still need to get over the hurdle of the planning application or any amendments required, and any delay that might cause. Bear in mind that whatever the answer is about that application, it is not going to change that start time of July 26th. Again, being very parochial, that does not put the Vale at risk, because we're not going to commit the money until we've got that planning application in place. So I think it boils down to, then, in my mind, I'm trying to decide if the original project was to provide just the pavilion, do I feel that £250,000, bear in mind the decision was made when there was more still funding, was a good decision? Would we have gone with £250,000? And then jump forward in time to say, okay, now if we are in a position, an unfortunate position of having to reduce the project to only providing the pavilion, is that a good use of that £250,000? Would we still go for that? So that's the quandary I've got in my mind.
Thank you for setting that out, and I think highlighting some of those more considered issues. I'm also grateful for you sort of not clarifying, but highlighting the protections we would have on our funding, because I think that's vital, because funding is in short supply, and and we do want to protect it, and we do want to, and I just maybe asking officers that that we would be monitoring that very carefully, and that process, and I have faith in our officers to do that. So as long as that you can offer me that reassurance, Mark, then that would be great. So thank you. The thing that I was, if I can just jump in, and the thing I was also considering is any future discussions with, like, the Scout group, for instance, because if the Scouts group is in the rugby pavilion or whatever, from my memory, because I've been down there as well, that is not the best facility either. So is there potential along years to come to just continue discussions with other groups that may not yet be involved with this, or may have excluded themselves or felt excluded from the discussions? Would that be a thing? And I was going to ask Mark, would there be potential there at least, Mark?
What, for use of this facility or additional funding?
Yeah, well, there's just no, not additional funding, but to keep discussions open, as a sort of, with that. So I just want reassurance that it is a fully inclusive. It would be a fully inclusive facility, and people and groups would not feel excluded from it potentially, even if they do now. That makes sense.
Yeah, we'd seek to ensure that was the case when rewarding any of our funds. I mean, ultimately, the usership of these facilities, it will be down to the parish council in this instance.
Yeah.
If they determine that there is the time and availability for the scouts to move in there, then obviously it won't be an issue from our perspective, but it isn't a prerequisite of the award of these funds. We would ultimately have to leave that in the hands of the parish council to determine who the users of that facility would be. But the funding agreement will set out that it is inclusive. We wouldn't exclude any groups or areas of society from using that. But obviously you need to bear in mind there is only so many hours in the day and so many rooms in the facility that would be able to be used.
Thank you. I just wanted to that voice in some way. Does anybody have any further questions or comments? Councillor Gascoigne.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it's been said already. I agree with lots of the comments that have been made by my colleagues. And having heard what I've heard today from public speakers, and thank you so much for all of them for coming. It really adds context and real life context to the paper that we have in front of us. Around the Scouts, obviously it's a shame that they have pulled out, though, as has been said, they and you've already asked, you know, there's still options in the future. There are other Scout groups, and clearly it sounds like there are many other groups and people that will be using this facility, so that doesn't really concern me. And the other thing just to point out as well is the alignment with this pitch and the playing pitch sports strategy that we have at Vale, has been mentioned by the public speakers, the neighbourhood plan. So I feel quite confident that this facility is delivering what has been identified in a number of ways, what local people need. So yeah, I will be supporting it.
Let's go.
Yeah, I agree with what you said with respect to the sports provision. Where I'm struggling, and I'm not going to repeat everything I said, is you mentioned about communities, community groups being able to use it. If phase one is the only bit that goes forward,
sure,
there is community space, but and it is bigger than the space that's in the current pavilion, and I saw that for myself. It is very small. However, I don't think it would be usable by something like a Scout organisation, or where you've got a lot of people. So I think we still need to keep that in mind, that yes, the sports pavilion meets the playing pitch strategy, and that's a good thing. But I'm less convinced that we're going to be delivering the community space that was originally envisaged, and therefore, obviously being financed a bit, I'm wondering whether that is what we're getting is still worth the $250,000.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Crawford.
No, phase one clearly doesn't on its own deliver the whole community space that the original plan did envisage. But as we've heard, it's a bigger community space than we have at the moment, and provides all change rooms and everything else. I will probably take issue with the fact that Scouts can't use it. Different packs do different things at different times, and wouldn't be unusual for one evening for a Scout pack to do something outdoors, sports related. Here you've got toilets and changing rooms. So I've not heard anything this evening from anybody that says that the Scouts can't use it. Should they wish to, appropriate to the facilities that are on offer. And it could well be that Scout group would use it, because certainly when my daughter was in the Scouts, Cubs were, occasionally they'd go and use an outdoor facility away from the Scout hut that was there, and that's great. And this facility could provide facilities for Scouts and Guides, albeit not a large hall where they can do whatever they do in a large hall.
I 100% agree with what you said. But that then begs the question of, well, why do we need the additional community space that was going to be did in phase two? Why was that put into the project in the first place? Presumably because the community space needs to be of a certain size.
In the longer term, yes, I understand that. But that is phase two, and to a certain extent, phase one will be hopefully acting as a catalyst for phase two.
Yeah,
budget standalone, and if that never materialises, at least phase one, is of value, and that's what we've heard today.
Yeah. you want to make a further comment?
Not only that the whole project is a significant amount of money, and the bit that's for the pavilion is I can't. I'm sure I've seen the figures somewhere. I can't remember. Maybe Mark, do you recall what the total cost is? Or sorry, of phase one, which we've got, but what would be the cost of delivering phase two?
I believe delivering phase two was a similar cost. I think it was just over 2 million or total
Yeah.
for the entire facility.
That was my recollection. So, you know, this is still looking to find an additional £1 million for phase two to go ahead.
Yeah, so it's 2 million for both phases.
Yeah.
Okay.
Roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with Councillor Crawford there, because I'm not aware of the size of what we're talking about in the first phase of the pavilion, but yeah, and my scouting children have had very, very small amounts of internal space, and hopefully as scouts they do go outside even in the cold and the dark, which is hopefully very good for them. Councillor Forster.
I move a recommendation.
Yes.
And I move that we approve the award of £250,000 community infrastructure levy allocation to the council's capital programme for Botley Pavilion to Botley and Northampton Parish Council towards delivery of phase one of the proposed pavilion project as set out in the report, and that we authorise the head of finance in consultation with the head of legal and democratic to do the things in clause A and B written on the agenda.
Thank you very much, because I don't have to read those out.
Trying to have a second. Trying to be helpful.
Yes, I was going to ask for a second. Councillor Crawford, you're going to second. So Councillor Fawcett has proposed that. Councillor Crawford has second. Now that we're voting on this item, can I have agreement? Or does
Agreed.
it? Yep.
Agreed.
Yep, agreed.
No, I would wish to abstain.
Agree. So that's, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So, thank you. And so we have resolution, so that is, we have agreed on the recommendations. And £250,000 will be available for the parish to draw down under the stipulations in the recommendations. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Everybody's happy with that? Thank you. And may I say, can I thank everybody who's contributed to the discussion, those around the table online, but particularly members of the public who have come in. We really do appreciate it. It always makes for a much, I think, more lively decision-making process and a much more engaged decision-making process. So I do thank you all for coming, and I look forward to hearing more into the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have to go, you can stay for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
I've got two more reports to it. Please sit down.
Depending on how long you've got your car earlier.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We're just having a short break after that long night.
Time to actually decide the bill for water.
Well, I think that's where Kenny.
I'll find it.
I might use the opportunity to plug in my computer. These new ones are very.
They do lose their device quite quickly, don't they?
They are rubbish. Give me my old Dell back.
It will reach it.
So I think that's probably the best discussion debate that we've had on a topic.
Was in a lot of detail.
Your time.
It might, I meant to say that, yeah. I also
It's a
slightly
bit like,
discussed
it's a bit like the bloody council meeting on Wednesday, saying this is the best turnout we've ever had. No.
when we were voting to put
For everyone online, just to let you know, quick water break and then we'll
Yeah, I
start in a
did say
minute.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can restart the meeting, and as we've done item 12 after the public speaking, we're going to go back to item 8, and this is
sorry. Was there anything under item 7, which was reports back?
Oh, no.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Because we had a meeting very recently, there's no further recommendations that have come forward for this meeting.
yeah. Thank you. So we'll now go to item 8. So the new joint homelessness and rough sleeping strategy 25 to 28, and I believe Councillor Crawford.
I am.
Yeah.
When I wrote this, I wrote "Good morning, colleagues" to start with.
Yeah, it's still good.
And I've only just made it. So this report presents the updated homeless and rough sleeping strategy, which we hold jointly with SAP. It's a legal requirement for the council to have such a strategy and have it updated every 5 years. I'd like to begin with a stark reminder, though, of the national homelessness picture, one that underlines the critical importance of the council's work on homelessness. More than 1,600 people experiencing homelessness died across the UK in 2024. The average age of death of these people was just 45. 330,000 households per year are either homeless or at risk of homelessness, and temporary accommodation use is at unprecedented levels, including the number of children living in emergency accommodation. Rough sleeping rose by 20% in the year, and almost 60% of people owed a homelessness duty have identified support needs such as physical or mental health conditions, experiences of domestic abuse or substance misuse. It's a common misconception that homelessness is confined to certain groups, or that it only refers to people sleeping on the streets. In reality, homelessness is often hidden. It can affect anyone, and it can happen very quickly. A job loss, a health crisis, or a change in landlord circumstances can leave someone without a home, often with little warning, and the consequences can be devastating. So let's look at the report and the work that the council has done and will do to address these issues in our area. Excuse me. As required within the guidance, the draft strategy in Appendix 3 has been developed following a comprehensive homelessness review, which included engagement with internal teams, partner agencies, and members of the public. A member consultation exercise was held in May, and thank you to everybody that turned up for that. All feedback from the consultation and exercises were considered and has been valuable in shaping this strategy. The review highlighted many strengths of the council's approach to homelessness, and that indeed this council continues to perform exceptionally well in preventing homelessness, regularly exceeding both national and South East averages by more than 20%, and constantly ranking within the top 10% of all reporting local authorities in England, which is a real testament to the strength of the housing department we have and the officers in it. We've also maintained stable levels of rough sleeping, even as many neighbouring councils have reported increases, thanks to a proactive and collaborative approach, combined with innovative problem solving. We've significantly reduced the number of households in temporary accommodations since the peak in January 23. We know that this has not been the case in many other parts of the country, but we shouldn't be complacent. The review has identified areas for improvement, and these are reflected in the 5 strategic objectives outlined in the new draft strategy, which is shown in Appendix 2. These are early intervention to prevent homelessness, strong partnership working to tackle complex homelessness, increase access to suitable long-term housing, effectively end rough sleeping, and to minimise the use of temporary accommodation. The housing needs teams work to produce a robust and forward-thinking strategy, supported by a detailed action plan with clear and measurable outcomes. Its focus is on reducing homelessness and rough sleeping in the Vale, and ensuring that vulnerable residents are supported into safe and permanent housing. If approved, this new strategy would be live from the 3rd of November and will put the council in a strong position to continue supporting our residents and to protect them from the damaging effects of homelessness in the years ahead. And for those reasons, I recommend this report.
Thank you, Councillor Crawford. I remember the workshop over in Didcot, and I thought that was a very well put together workshop where we got to discuss this strategy in its very first stages, and I was very grateful for the team that put it on and being able to contribute. And I believe I also responded to the consultation on this. It is one of the most important, if not the most important, responsibilities we have as council. And I really welcome this new strategy. So I will open up discussion and debate. Does anybody have any comments? Phil is online as well, isn't he? Councillor Fulsham.
Thank you, Chad. I was particularly encouraged to see the mention of strong partnership working to tackling complex homelessness, and I wonder if a member or officers could explain what proportion of our work in this area comes under this heading. I know it's the stuff that really is at the sharp end and will make huge differences to the lives of those involved.
I think I'd rather pass that to Phil, actually, if that's okay. Phil's
good morning, members. I think in terms of partnership working, I know it sounds a little trite, but to successfully prevent homelessness, you do have to tackle the care element and the housing element together. And that very much promotes the aspect of county-wide working with for example, with our partners at Oxfordshire County Council, who help provide health and care provisions. And alongside that, we do have a very good working relationship with the other districts in Oxfordshire. We have a county-wide as well as our own homelessness strategy. And as you can imagine, sometimes in homelessness, there can be fractious relationships between councils about borders and so forth. But in my experience, we actually work very well with the other districts in Oxfordshire, and that helps us and them to produce for South and Vale some quite remarkable figures in terms of homelessness prevention and subsequent very low occupation and TA, and that obviously has very clear benefits for vulnerable residents in the district, and also avoids significant costs to the council as well in terms of the provision of TA. So yes, partnership working, as mentioned in the strategy, is really key. to work together to provide long-term solutions to homelessness.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Beth.
So it's an observation, I think, rather than a question. But you know, nationally, the number of the figures are going up for homelessness. You know, particularly with the economy the way it is, and it doesn't look like anything's going to improve very soon. So I welcome the fact that this council has bought additional properties to help people get into property, which then clearly want to try and reduce the amount of temporary accommodation, particularly where they're properties of multiple occupancy. That's not ideal, and quite a lot of the people who need that support are vulnerable and are in the wrong place if they're in multiple occupancy. So I welcome the strategy. What worries me a little bit, and you would expect me to say as finances, you know, we don't have that much more money, and the Section 106 for affordable housing is really good use of the funding. Therefore, our focus must be on trying to prevent homelessness in the first place, i.e., what is the cause of it, and those things are really difficult. And for my own background and as an armed forces champion, you know, some of the veterans that we have, you know, particularly difficult to support in the sense that they have been institutionalized for quite some time. I have 37 years of being institutionalized and people looking after me, and then to move out of the services, that does put them into a difficult position. So as much as we can in terms of that cooperation to support those people so they do not become homeless, yeah, there's got to be the way that we should be going forward.
Can I just respond? I go absolutely right, Councillor Coleman, and I guess very soon we're going to have the enactment of the no fault evictions being done away with, aren't we? And I have some hope that will, to a certain extent, improve the situation. If you recall, the MP for Didcot Wantage was made homeless on the day of the general election through a no fault eviction. That was the first letter he received on Friday after the election. I've also recently been in correspondence with somebody who's moved from Oxford to Wantage. He works in Oxford, but he's just was told that his rent was going to go from £700 a month to £1,200 a month overnight. He simply could not afford that and has had to move to Wantage in order to have an affordable rent. So the pressures are tremendous, and it's very much a seller's market in housing at the moment. This paper doesn't particularly talk about how successful we are as a district in building affordable housing and social housing. That all adds to the mix, though. We shouldn't kid ourselves that the pressures are going to go away. They're not. But I think this puts us in the best possible position to deal with those pressures as and when they arrive.
I was just briefly going to say, I think that the service that we're offering now is really impressive. Like, obviously, it's widely recognised, but I've literally this week had a call from somebody who has a very serious illness and is about to be made homeless, and offered support to make sure that she was in touch with the right organisations and the housing team. And by the time I got back to her, she said, "Oh, I've already spoken to the housing officer. They've said these are the things I need to do. They've offered this if I get really stuck. So this is my plan." And it was really quick and a really responsive service and very person centred and in a really difficult situation for that person. So I think what Bill's team do is incredible now, and I really support this strategy. One thing in particular, because of that pressure that we have in an area where housing is so unaffordable, generally looking at different ways to increase housing supply that is genuinely affordable. And one of the things that I'm a big champion of is community land trusts. So I'm really happy to do that in the strategy specifically, because I think although we've only got small numbers of those in Vale at the moment, I think there's huge potential there, and having that kind of mixed approach to different ways of providing affordable housing is going to stand in good stead. So yeah, very supportive of the strategy.
Thank you. And Councillor Coulson.
Yeah, I won't repeat everything that's been said, but I would like to repeat the thanks to the team for doing such an excellent job. I think it's difficult to imagine what it's like to be in a position where you're homeless or at risk of homelessness, and the way that we deal with people, not just by giving them good advice, but with compassion, is really important. Prevention absolutely is the top priority, but it is good how this report pulls together all the different elements of the strategy, without wanting to risk our very positive partnership working with other councils. I've just been having a quick look at the figures, and it is noticeable, I think, that the Vale has delivered, like in the last year's figures, the Vale delivered 5 times as many affordable housing units as the City Council. And 2 years ago, we delivered more affordable housing units than the entire number of completions that took place in the City Council at all. And I think, that demonstrates how well the Vale is doing at delivering what we should be delivering, and we are consistently exceeding our targets in terms of delivery. So I do accept that there are challenges on the way. We've partly achieved that because we've spent resources that we have had available to us very effectively, and that will get tighter going forward. And obviously the whole landscape will change, as far as we know, in the next couple of years anyway. But no, I think we have done a good job, and I think it's particularly because we very successfully pulled together the different elements from supporting individuals and families in advance of there being a problem, which is the best point to intervene, through to our own delivery of significantly more housing in the market. So fully supportive of this strategy.
Thank you.
I'll take second then.
Yeah. So you're proposing, did anybody have any further comments? No. So you're proposing the recommendations set out at the beginning of the report, and you're seconding them. Are we all happy to agree?
Agree.
Yeah, agree. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thank you, Cabinet.
Can you thank Tom as well?
Yeah, Tom Gorman put an awful lot of work into preparing the report, and I'll pass on the thanks to the wider team as well. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. That's very much appreciated. So now we're on item number 9, proposed adoption of a closed churchyards policy, and I think that's being introduced by Councillor Gascoigne.
Yes, it is. Yes, thank you. You may be forgiven if you weren't aware this was something that we had to deal with. I wasn't until I was on Cabinet. So, Cabinet colleagues, I would like to introduce this agenda item, the proposed adoption of the closed churchyard policy. Under section 215 of the Local Government Act 1972, our council has a statutory obligation to maintain closed churchyards where responsibility has been formally transferred to us by a parochial church council. This includes ensuring these spaces are kept in good and decent order and that public health and safety is upheld. Currently, the Vale is responsible for 7 closed churchyards, and this number is increasing annually. Until now, we have operated without a formal policy, which has led to inconsistent practices and costly remedial work. Adopting this policy will provide clarity and consistency. It outlines our responsibilities, sets expectations for parochial church councils and residents, and enables us to plan maintenance more effectively. It also supports transparency and accountability, aligning with our strategic priorities. While the report states there are no immediate financial implications, it's important to acknowledge that the policy does have a financial impact. Existing maintenance activities such as grass cutting and inspections are already budgeted for, but the adoption of a formal policy will formalise inspection regimes and trigger more consistent remedial works. Increased demand for officer time and resources as more PCCs, parochial church councils, seek to transfer liability, potentially lead to higher cumulative costs over time, especially for structural repairs and tree management. This policy will help us forecast and manage these costs, and it's important that the Cabinet is aware of the long-term budgetary implications and the need for ongoing review. Legal risks have been considered and mitigated. The policy provides a framework to manage health and safety proactively, including emergency works where required. It also clarifies the Council's position on consents and responsibilities, helping to protect us from liability while maintaining public safety. This policy is a sensible and necessary step forward. It will help us meet our statutory obligations, manage risks, and maintain these important community spaces with care and consistency. Delegation will be in place for officers to make minor amendments and for policy review. I'm joined online by Hannah from the property operations team should there be any technical questions. I commend the report to Cabinet and recommend its adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Guest. Parochial Church Council's the only one I haven't been on. So all the other ones. Yeah. Okay, so other people have, but yes, it is tricky. And believe it or not, I have had quite a close link to this policy, because although it's not in my ward, it is in my locality that there has been issues with a closed churchyard, and that has been the topic of conversation at most parish councils. Now, I think if this had been adopted, if we'd had this policy, it the sort of regular maintenance and inspection that's set out here would have picked up the problems that had led to what was effectively sort of an emergency, and a great deal of time, resources, and money in repairing it. In this case, it was a wall that had collapsed, so that had caused quite a lot of concern for residents, as well as a lot of work for the council. So I think if this had been adopted previously, if we'd had a policy, that would have been laid out and we would have been able to maintain that. But that's my assumption anyway. So, does anybody have any further comments? I really do welcome this.
Yeah. Maybe this is a question for Hannah, or perhaps for Simon. In the finance section, paragraph 13, it talks about special expense under section 35 of the Local Government Finance Act, which enables, if there is a specific cost that falls into a parish or the maintenance of the cemetery, that the levy can be directed specifically to that parish as opposed to across the board. We've determined that we're not going to put that into place, but my question is, what process would we have to go through to put it in place? Is it something that we could just choose to do, or does it have to go through full council? I.e., if we end up with a really big bill, how do I get my money back? Yeah,
I mean, effectively, it would be, as you'll be aware, we take budget setting and council tax levels through full cabinet. Well, I don't take council tax through full council. We take the budget through cabinet and council in February. We also take the council tax calculation. It would manifest in that, so it'd still have to be a cabinet and council decision, right, to do that part of the annual side. We couldn't decide I'm going to do it for tomorrow. No, you would only be able to ever think about exercising that right when you set your full budget and council tax.
So something really that we need to continue to monitor. Say, is the service cost going up, and if it is, then do we need to rethink this decision not to implement? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will support the recommendations because I have to, but this is a blank check, isn't it, really? And it's really worrying. And maybe one of the things I'll do outside of my role as a councillor is to try and decide something to appeal the Burials Act of 1855. That's for another day.
National legislation, yeah.
Yeah, if I can just come back on that, and I appreciate that, we don't know how much these things will cost, but the point is that it is our obligation, but at least having this policy really sets out expectations on both sides.
Yeah. That was my understanding, and I was seeing this more as a potential cost saving, having gone through the experience in our local closed churchyard, because I think you could never tell what's going to happen, but if we'd had perhaps more understanding of all of the issues, then it wouldn't have ended up in a sort of a more emergency measure. So I would like to think that it would be, but who can say it is?
Yeah, I'm not sure that it becomes cost savings as a maintenance, although it might do. But I think the key point is, by having regular inspections, hopefully that's the case. But more importantly, it means that we're meeting our statutory requirement of protecting people.
Mhm.
You know, so we see it as a vulnerability, and then hopefully, you know, we can fix it before somebody gets hurt, and then we do become liable. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So any further comments? No? Okay, so can I, Hayley, are you happy to propose
Yes, of course.
recommendations?
Yeah.
So, the cabinet approves the new closed churchyard policy and subject to approval of the policy, delegates authority to the head of development and corporate landlord in consultation with the head of legal and democratic services to make minor amendments to the policy as required. Do we have a second on?
Happy second.
Thanks. Councillor Smith, so everybody agreed?
Agreed.
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 Very much. And thank you, Hannah, for all the work that's gone into this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.
So, Councillor Coleman, and we're on to item number 10, budgeting setting report. Budget setting.
So,
dates 27.
So I think we're probably on sort of the third major agenda item, and I can't help it. Maybe this should have been first, and then it might have changed the way our discussions went. However, so this is the first report on budget setting for the financial year 26-27 that Cabinet is considering. Officers intend to bring forward a further update report to Cabinet just before Christmas, ahead of the final budget setting report, which will be considered by scrutiny and Cabinet before being voted on at Council in February of 2026. The report provides a background to revenue budget setting activity, an outline of the revenue budget activity already underway and scheduled over the coming months, and an outline of capital budget setting activity. This year's budget setting activity takes place against the backdrop of local government reorganisation, alongside ongoing uncertainty over the future of local government funding as central government concludes its fair funding review. On local government reorganisation, the Council's activity will become more constrained as the government guidance increases the restrictions which apply that will impact on the discretion that the Council had previously had in setting its budget ahead of the proposed LGR implementation date of April 2028. On future funding, we await a policy statement expected in November and the provisional settlement now scheduled for just before Christmas. However, Vale is among 40 district councils who may receive a funding floor guarantee that is between 5 to 7% below the 2025-2026 core revenue spending power, which will continue across 2026-27 to 28 and 29. Other district councils can expect to receive a funding floor at least equal to the 2025-26 core revenue spending power, i.e. we are likely to be between 5 and 7% less well off. This is a worse funding position than was estimated in the medium-term financial plan for 26 and 27, albeit the position in the years 2027, 28 and 28, 29 would not be as bad as the medium-term financial plan predicted, assuming a 7% reduction in core spending power. The 2025-26 budget setting report included recommended parameters for the sustainable use of reserves to support the revenue budget. It proposed that the maximum use of reserves to balance the budget should be no more than 10% of the general fund balance, subject to some exceptions identified in the report. For 26-27, the estimated headroom for the budget based on the parameters for sustainable budget setting was £435,000. This would be all but eliminated if the estimated reduction in funding comes to pass, which poses significant challenges ahead of the 26-27 budget setting round. Work underway now on preparing the Council's base budget will show how the budget compares to the estimates included in the previous medium-term financial plan and the sustainable use of reserves. Those reserves based budgets together with capital budgets will be subject to officer and cabinet member challenge in the period between now and Christmas. Given the likely financial challenges as outlined in the report, at that stage of the budget setting process, members will also need to consider whether service reductions are needed to enable the Council to stay within its budgetary envelope. The next report to Cabinet in December will update on the work to date, the funding position, if known from the government, the proposed base of budget with a comparison to budget target, and the resulting options for consideration by Cabinet. So Cabinet is asked to note the contents of this report.
Thank you. I would invite questions and comments.
I'd just like to say that I'm glad I don't have a portfolio.
I thought you were going to say it was never like that in the mine here.
I just have one question actually. The report mentions investment income in paragraph 13, but what's not clear to me is whether we have reassessed our expected treasury income for the period, given that interest rates have fallen much more slowly and are predicted, I understand, to be higher in the next few years than were originally predicted.
So I'm going to hazard a guess that the answer is yes, and it will obviously pan out in when we do the budget setting. But I'll hand that to the finance officer who'll know better than me.
We, at this stage, we've conducted a high level analysis, and you're absolutely right. We think we'll earn more interest income than we predicted in the MTFP. So obviously that's a bit of good news. I think we intend to, how can I put it, be a bit more bullish in our investment income projections going forward. I think I would much rather, given the challenges the council faces, I'd probably rather come in a little bit under budget than come in massively over budget for 27-28, which of course does pose a risk to the budget, but I think with the reserves we've got that's manageable. So you know, it's not all a list of bad news. There is some good news, and that is probably one of the key items of good news at the moment, and we'll want to maximise that in our considerations.
So may I ask, so that bullish view then is that reflected in the numbers that are in table 2 or any other table, any of the other tables?
Not at this stage, no.
So in fact, what you seem to be saying then is the position, because of investment income, is possibly going to be slightly better than these tables display.
All we have in these tables at the moment are what we think will happen with government funding.
Yes.
The investment incomes are positive to that, but members will be aware that other decisions have been taken, you know, that are on contracts that are going the other way.
Yeah.
And they're not increasing numbers either.
Yeah.
Other questions?
But again, perhaps make an observation. So we did last year put this a target of 10% on retaining spending no more than on the reserves than 10%. You know, and similar to the position the government's in, you know, we set these fiscal rules, you know, but they're not written in stone. And if we wish to change them, then we can. My strong advice is that we don't do so, you know, because although we're going into LGI in 28, 29, we do still need to put forward a sustainable budget. Legally, we only have to balance for the first year of the medium-term financial plan, but it would be prudent of us, obviously, to set something up for the next administration. It would be wrong for us to basically, you know, write the post-it note that says yes, we spent all the money. That we shouldn't do. However, if something really significant came up, then we could look at that limit.
That's, thank you. Yeah, highlighting that. Yeah. Well, I think I reflected earlier in the week that this isn't a cheery picture, is it? But I do have confidence. I have confidence in Councillor Crawford when he held this portfolio that we will do our best and we will see what we need to do to get through this. But it is good to know that there's some possibility of leeway, perhaps. Any further comments or questions? No. Yeah, one more.
Well, there is, because what you know, I wouldn't want anyone to misinterpret what I said. You know, we should be aiming to do the 10%. So therefore, I did put, there was a little sub-para that said, as we're going through the budget challenge, you know, we should be considering whether there is a necessity not a desire, but a necessity to reduce service, because we are spending more money. We will be spending more money, as we know, on things like the new contracts that waste and street cleansing. So I think as probably most businesses do, as you come up to setting your budget, you should be looking at what your options might be in terms of reducing the cost. That doesn't mean we necessarily have to put them in place, and officers are already going through that process. And I would ask all portfolio holders to, be that honest broker, and I don't think we should go as far as we do with it. Again, with industry, where you're told you need to make a 10% saving this year, identify those, but we should be seriously thinking along those lines.
Yes, I did. Yes, I know that we have to do that. So thank you. We've shared the car in enough.
Stupid on that. I'm no longer talking rubbish. I'm now talking no money.
So we're being asked to note the report.
Yes, that's right.
So are we happy to note the report set out?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we are going straight on to item 11, which is the quarter one budget monitoring for April 25 to 20. Yes, to June 25. Sorry.
Yeah. First quarter. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Stage, I don't know which year I'm in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I was expecting 26 sometime. It's like apologies. So you are introducing again, Councillor Common. So
yes. So the last report was effectively thinking about looking forward, and this is now looking back. Yeah. Certainly for the last few months. So this report reviews the council's revenue and capital expenditure performance against budget during the financial year 2024-25 to the end of the month 3, which is June. Cabinet will recall that the budget for 2025-26 was agreed by council on the 12th of February 2025. The net revenue budget, as outlined in paragraph 6 of the report, was set at £24.8 million. In terms of revenue, as explained in paragraph 7, table 1, the forecast is for an overspend on service expenditure of just under £0.4 million. And investment income is expected to exceed budget by just under £3 million, giving a total forecast revenue underspend of £2.6 million. On capital, the budgeted approved programme at the end of the year was, as shown in paragraph 15, table 2, at £27.8 million. Spend to date is £1.7 million. Details of significant variances on both capital and revenue are detailed in the report. To comply with the latest Treasury Management guidance, this quarterly budget report also includes details on Treasury Management activity for the first 3 months, including commentary on performance and prudential indicators. I recommend that the Cabinet notes this report. Thank you.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Thank you. A simple comment from me is that I want to express again my thanks to Councillor Coleman and the whole finance team for a very detailed and thorough view of the budget position. Admittedly, it's first quarter, so we're a long way to go yet, but it's good to see it being monitored so closely. And one of the most reassuring things that we found is that there aren't surprises that come barreling at us here, there, and everywhere.
Said it.
But thank you. Do express my thanks to the team.
I just have one quick question actually on table 3, paragraph 17. There's a column that says working budget year to date and spend to date and variance. Is it right that it's the working budget year to date, or is it the working budget for the full year?
Yeah,
I think that's the full year.
Because it makes it look as if we tended to spend all this money in the first quarter and haven't done so. And are therefore massively in variance. But in reality, it's to be spent until up until next March.
The revenue budget is to date. And the capital budget is not. No, and the capital budget is to the end of the year.
But so that column needs to be changed the next time. Maybe
you just need the words year to date deleted.
strangely, I was looking at the very same and thinking the very same, and thinking of just trying to do maths in my head, like trying to divide it by 4 or whatever to try and work it out.
I was slightly worried if we multiply it by 4, you know, what that means. Right, we haven't got that much.
But yes, thank you for pointing that out.
So I'd obviously I have gone through this report previously with officers, and one of the questions that I asked, and Simon's going to at least think about it and look into it, is the approved budget for capital is 27.8. When we did our budget setting, it was lower than that, and so whilst all these things have been agreed and been put into the budget, I'm just previously, Councillor Gascoigne, it was my area that probably put the extra requirements on in terms of delivery of things. Now, what I'm worried about is, whilst it might only be, £50,000 or £100,000 on project A, and then there's another on project B. When you add all those together, it increases the budget requirement quite considerably. Capital we traditionally underspend on anyway because we can't. So I'm not overly worried about it, but I'm interested in what is the mechanism for us to have the overview. I know the officers are doing it, but it's more about, I guess, me as finance, but us generally making sure we're keeping track of those things that are being added into the budget for good reasons, that we don't then become, oh, where did that figure come from?
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in terms of additions to the capital programme, they can only be agreed by full council unless they're externally funded. So obviously the main concern would be around projects in year that get added, and obviously we've seen one this week at the council, so that will increase the budget again.
Yeah.
I think, a question I guess I would almost put back to you and your cabinet colleagues is, when you're having your portfolio updates, are you discussing capital projects with your heads of service? Because I think that would be really useful to do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and especially if they are anticipating at this stage spending all that money in this year. Yeah, I think I'd be asking them, are you absolutely certain on that?
Exactly. It's almost like we want to sort of a probability of it, sort of 50% or the 50th percentile, or maybe the 80%, 90%. So well, I'm 50% certain we're going to spend this. Okay, well, fine. I'm 90% certain. Then we really need to know that's going to happen. So,
and again, just to aid with better profile, we've started challenging the capital budgets as part of the budget setting activity described in here. And we had a situation with one head of service who said, well, I think I might spend that in March. And we said to him, we'll put it in next year then, because think probably means you won't.
Councillor Fawcett.
I think the specific answer to your question, Councillor Colin, is that this report is the point at which we get the chance to challenge, and we have a quarterly report in order to keep on top of it through the year. I think it's always a bit challenging on the capital budget when we're looking at the first quarter, because as we've already discussed, most of it would have been spent in the first quarter. Yeah. I would say if we get to the second quarter report and basically none of the money's been spent yet, we should be asking questions, and this is effectively our opportunity as cabinet to do that in a public setting. But as Simon has said, it's something we ought to be on top of in our individual portfolios as well. I think my experience of council budget is it is more challenging in terms of how capital is phased, because to an extent the revenue budget is regular expenditure. A lot of it is the same every month because it's around staffing and property costs and all the rest of it that's very predictable. And in that sense, it's easier to monitor on a month-by-month or quarter-by-quarter basis. The nature of capital projects is different, but certainly one thing I've learned over the years is sort of to build in an expectation that whatever is programmed in for a particular won't all get spent. Yeah. And picking up the discussion we had earlier in the meeting, one of the reasons I'm probably a little bit more relaxed about spending capital allocations where we have made them is that my experience is I don't think I can ever remember a year on any of the council I've been on where we've spent the full capital budget in a year.
Yeah.
So I take a little bit of comfort from that we can spend what we, when we get a chance to spend something, we probably can if it's already programmed. And we just need to keep an eye on this report every quarter. And as I said, in our portfolios, to make sure that nothing is coming up to bite us.
Yeah, I mean, because of exactly that, we do overly over provision. So we it's not committed funding, but it's in the budget. And I don't know what the percentage is, but it's over 100% of our income, knowing that we're not going to spend anything.
I was going to say, just looking at that, and as we say, we're challenging it in a public forum. The only one that actually does seem to put on track is the finance.
What can I say?
Well done. I didn't see if you put the hand up first, but Councillor Crawford and then Councillor Crawford.
By the way, you've got to remember that Simon's the one that does the numbers.
So I'm up in your own home though.
So,
there's an audit.
Councillor Cole raised the concerns about in-year additions, and yes, in this first quarter there have been on capital, but if I'm not mistaken, all of those have been fully externally funded, and so that gives us some comfort, doesn't it? Simon, you said that any increase would have to be approved by full council, but is it not the case that smaller amounts can be done by DA and ICMD?
Any new thing has to go through full council unless it's externally funded. So if we're doing anything new, anything over 100, any addition to a scheme over 100,000 has to go to full council. But you're right, if there was an addition of less than 100,000, it wouldn't need full council. I think I specifically that might talk about something new.
Yeah, okay.
Which is always a full council decision.
But some of the increases that are likely to occur will be for approved projects that need a bit of additional money.
Yeah.
And we would see these individually by way of either seeing the DA or
I think that was the sort of thing I had in mind. So, for example, going back to the previous item of the graveyards, the money that was set aside to repair the wall, suddenly we get the quote. Well, not suddenly, but we get the quote in, and it's twice as much. So we have to buy that funding. So
but the portfolio holder would see that.
Yes.
So it's not.
No. Sorry, I'm not. I wasn't for a minute suggesting it's not being monitored, but it's the collective, the accumulation of those and the effect that would have.
Awesome. Thank you. Slightly hesitant to ask you to do a bit of crystal ball gazing, but we've mentioned several times the externally funded capital programme additions, and we all know they come through relatively regularly. Do we have an impression of what's going to happen as we approach LGR? Are we going to suddenly find that those are tapering off and they're not coming through, or is it so much business as usual that they'll carry on come what may?
Yeah, basically.
I think it'll be a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
So at one end of the spectrum, there'll be, for example, disabled facilities grants, which are 100% externally funded. I think they will carry on as normal. We'll just keep going with those. There's a question about whether, so if I stay in the government grant theme, there is a question in my head about whether government will be forthcoming with one-off grant funding for things to an authority that won't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be that they rein back on those. It may be the department involved doesn't realise that LGR is going on and carries on anyway. But what I would say in that situation is even with LGR, clearly they're giving an organisation, happens to be us today, an obligation to do something. That obligation would pass on to the successor authority. So I don't think that's necessarily an issue. Where we use an external money, where we have no discretion. Mm-hmm. So, for example, a Section 106 agreement that says we will give you X £1,000 to do Y. I think we will carry on doing those throughout the process. I think where we will face a challenge is something where we have discretion on an external funding stream, still being the obvious one, but also some of Section 106 is where it's not clear and not unambiguous. I think we will need to form a view, not at this council, but at the other one, the officer support. we've been going through this discussion matrix in terms of a something they want to fund at the moment. They can't fund, I think, what they thought they would like to fund. They can fund a smaller amount because it's an amount myself and Nick are more comfortable with. And that is looking at the decision through the eyes of the authority that comes after you. You know, all the authority that comes after you for thank you for spending that what would have been their money had you not spent it on that. And I think that's the challenge. And clearly, the bigger the amount you spend, the more unhappy they might get. So at a lower level, it's low risk. At a higher level, you know, that decision might come back to haunt someone one day. So sorry, it's a really complicated. It's a very simple and a very good question, but it has a really complicated answer.
Thank you. It's good to get it out in public.
Yeah.
Most LGR thing. Thank you. So are there any other comments or questions? No? So we're being asked to note the report. Is everybody happy to do so?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Since we've had item number 12, I declare this the end of the meeting. So thank you very much, everybody.
Well done, Chair.
Thank you online, and yeah, goodbye. Have a good afternoon and a good weekend. And it comes.